For a while now, I've been seeing the same arguments about the metaverse. One, that's failing, and two, the reasons why. And it's the reasons why I'm here to discuss today. Because people are proposing solutions, but not really asking why things are the way they are, and why Epic Games made certain choices. One example is the idea that the Fortnite Metaverse began when Donald Mustard left, or after the Big Bang event, or just didn't want the metaverse. This was way in motion before that. This perspective seems to be more of a coincidence than anything else. Yes, his interview didn't help to clarify this, the issue was kind of taken out of context as to what he was actually mad about. And the coincidence I'm talking about is not Donald Mustard did leave because of the metaverse. It was of course decisions around that as to why he left, but he didn't solely leave because of the metaverse, which I will get into. A version of the metaverse was conceptualized by Donald himself. You may argue about how it played out, but Donald Mustard was there with them, conceptualizing the metaverse, which of course is the context I'm getting at in that synonymous interview. Now, it would appear that Donald Mustard didn't get his perfect idea of the metaverse, as you could say, his perfect order. But the concept of a metaverse itself isn't the problem, because everyone puts their hate for the Fortnite Metaverse onto Tim Sweeney. So the same should be done for Donald Mustard. No? I know Tim Sweeney isn't everyone's favourite, but don't hate him for the same thing that Donald literally wanted to. As you know, Donald Mustard was part of Epic Games from Fortnite's Battle Royale's conception. And apparently, listening to that interview, you would know that Fortnite BL was conceptualized in the back of a taxi, I believe. And he would be at Epic Games until late 2023, where he was CCO, Chief Creative Officer of Epic Games. So he was responsible for Epic Games' creative direction throughout them years. And remember, it's Epic Games, not Fortnite. So when in 2019, Psyonix, and again in 2021 with Harmonix, both of them publishers were acquired by Epic Games in them years. He would have had some responsibility with them teams as well. He definitely would have had to liaise with the creatives on their teams, if indeed Donald Mustard was truly the CCO of Epic Games. And you will see why I say that, because as you get further into this video, I start to doubt if that is truly the case and it was not just Fortnite. From the outside looking in, it's definitely a big reason as to why these two publishers were acquired by Epic Games, and simply believing again from the outside looking in that the board at Epic Games wanted them for the metaverse to publish Rocket Racing and of course Festival. For me, that's clear intent what they wanted Festival and Rocket Racing to be. But before we get any further in today's video, make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more content like this, where we discuss openly about Fortnite, the negatives, the positives, and seeing past those blurred lines. But we're 19% of the way to 100k, so make sure to hit that subscribe button. Let's hit 20k and let's hit 100. Thank you very much, and of course, hit that like button while you're down there as well. Thank you very much. So we're moving on to our next issue when people bring up, oh, Rocket Racing should have been more like Mario Kart. And I think that's a very good argument. It's a fair comment. Why did they make it more like Mario Kart? I don't know. I can't answer that. But again, from the outside looking in, that would have been a creative decision from Epic Games, and Donald Mustard as CCO should have had some responsibility in that coming to fruition. Again, going back to the interview, this could have been where things got a little bit dicey. Maybe he wanted a Mario Kart game, but again, I have to just assess the situation as I see it, and at that point, Donald Mustard was very much for it. Or at least as CCO would have had to liaise the team to get this image across, to create Rocket Racing as we see it today. And the biggest answer for me, which shows Epic Games' intent, is their acquisition of Psyonix, the Rocket League publishers. They knew what game they wanted with Rocket Racing. They knew how they wanted the cars or vehicles to look in BR as well. They knew how they could incorporate this into the metaverse with the item shop skins and stuff with the cars. Clear intention. This doesn't just happen overnight. Like, for me, that's a massive creative decision. Did Donald Mustard just take his eyes off the ball? Of course, I understand that the buck stops with, Tim Sweeney, who's CEO. But when you take a job on any company, you have to follow company line. And maybe that's where the tension started between Donald Mustard and Tim Sweeney. Of course, this is just surmising though. It could have happened much later down the line, and the argument between the two, or the disagreement, is between how the metaverse should have looked, not necessarily about the games themselves like racing, Festival, and Lego, when I feel like them game modes are being caught in a crossfire by a certain portion of the community who believe Donald Mustard wouldn't have wanted this. And seriously, looking at the evidence how I see it, I don't see that. I see Donald Mustard for a metaverse type. I believe if we did have Donald Mustard's metaverse, which of course with all the people and opinions and the big company that Epic is, was always impossible, I believe it would have changed the way with how we interacted with Fortnite. More on that later in the video. Slightly getting back to Rocket Racing, now it's an arcade game similar to Mario Kart, but they're very different genres of arcade games. One is a kart game and the other is a drift racer. I say Rocket Racing is very similar to a game I used to play called Ridge Racer, and more precisely Ridge Racer 7. Drifting around corners, trying to get power-ups, the more you drift, that sort of stuff. Could Rocket Racing focus on more power-up options like Mario Kart? I don't see why not, and it could be something they look at in the future. Of course, Rocket Racing are no longer focused on seasonal themes, but doesn't mean they're not updating the game. That's at least what I got from the statement. Like, I feel like the majority of people at Epic Games looked at Rocket League and went, wow, the mobility, the movement's really cool, I wonder what we can do with this. I feel like when people talk about the metaverse, they feel like it kind of came out of nowhere, but it's definitely implemented and impacted Epic Games' decision over the past 5 years. Donald Nem was of course upset in the interview that he felt like people were being taken away from the events team to other teams to get this metaverse concept across the line by December 2023. Which he said in his interview. By mid-2022, Epic was committed to building LEGO Fortnite and Fortnite Racing for new expansion of Fortnite into a proper multiplayer game multiverse that would go live in December 2023. To build all this stuff, it takes so many people's time, and basically the event team was starting to be needed to work on other stuff. And it was devastating to me, because I'm like, this is actually the magic, and not everyone at Epic agrees with that. So in this sentence, there's two things that are clear to me. Of course everyone knows this, Donald Mustard not being happy with resources being taken from the events team and passed over to build and create the metaverse games. But how Donald Mustard has portrayed himself before and after leaving Epic Games, he seems to be very much supportive of the metaverse. It seems like the big stumbling block for Donald Mustard was the events, and that he felt like the storyline should be woven into the metaverse. But again, that's me making a conclusion, so take it with a pinch of salt, as the other things I say. But I can't mention that without stating that Epic has done some incredible work this chapter with live events. I know some people hate them, dislike them, and say Epic Games need to do more. Yes, these are not fully fledged play this live events, but we've had an event like every season of this chapter, which have told a really good narrative story, and I've enjoyed it, and they should be praised for that. It seemed like at the time this was a temporary solution to push the metaverse over the line. It seems like now they seem to be getting things back together, and efforts are going back into BR and back into live events. And the second point I'd like to make about this is obviously the time frame he seems to be alluding to. By mid-2022, Epic wanted and was committed to start work on the metaverse, and of course to bring it out in December 2023. It appears that Donald was unhappy with the time frame that Epic was working to, and that maybe he would have preferred it if it was pushed further back. But eventually, at some point, this would have had to have been implemented. With the acquisitions of the publishers, and of course their agreements with LEGO, and then further down the line recently with Disney, yes, money does talk. Funny. Which I guess may have sped up the process because, they want investment. Maybe Epic Games needed proof of concept. That's why they decided to speed things up and they could secure more investment. Which of course may have been the issue because a few months later they had to let 900 employees go. Another argument I've heard recently is that with the apparent fall of Rocket Racing, it frees up certain developers to work on other things. And by different things, they mean BR. But I'm pretty sure most of them are handled by their in-house publishers like Harmonix, Psyonix, and LEGO. So developers with that sort of experience would more likely go back to their fields like Rocket League. Obviously that's just me surmising. I don't know how they're going to handle their business if they're trying to move developers elsewhere if Rocket Racing isn't going to be worked on as much. Which I don't think is necessarily the case, I just don't think they're focusing on seasons. Look, it's clear that Donald Mustard and Tim Sweeney and people at Epic Games had a different idea of how the metaverse would have came about and how it would be conceived in actual reality. that the metaverse was a dream for Epic Games, and it's natural people had different ideas on how it should have played out. Donald's vision, however, seems to have gotten lost in translation, something that can happen with multiple people giving their inputs and ideas. I actually believe Donald's vision of the metaverse would have been much more cutthroat. I think there is some evidence for this. Now, Fortnite operates like this for me. It's a top dog, and the other game modes work around it. Sorry for the extremely poor quality, but you have them made by Epic Games. So you have Fortnite, and you have the other modes, Lego Festival, Rocket Racing, which you have to scroll down to Discovery, and then you have loads of different creative games as well adjacent to that as well. Actually, I think I might be wrong about this. It's not actually Fortnite, it's the lobby, and then everything else comes from there, as well as all the other game modes, the item shop, and then obviously the synchronization between the metaverse games and VR and everything is included in that item shop, and they have to then cross-relate, and then some things can relate to both, but then some don't. Then it just becomes a bit of a mismatch. Like, things don't really cross over from Lego Festival. Of course, you have pickaxes, I think, some of them jam tracks, now lobby tracks. Rocket Racing with the cars, which I have previously mentioned in the video. But Donald's vision could have been more like what we see here. That it would have been a Fortnite hub, and from that you would have access to the other game modes. Because you can see here that Fortnite is adjacent to the main hub. It's not Fortnite, how the system plays out now. Which I guess kind of happens here with the lobby, but at least this version wouldn't be trying to pretend that isn't the case. Now let's add in some of the other game modes, which I think the community would have liked more, and it would have signified a bit more intent from Epic Games. Like, no, this is what we're doing, like it or not. And at the moment, how it's currently set up, it's not great. It makes you feel very disconnected to everything. And with the Fin client, I think they could completely rework that to sort of be this. Have a downloadable hub thing where you could sort of travel to different realities, kind of like what we saw in Big Bang. Have a little reality, a little island where you would sort of jump into these portals, and you can have an option later to download each game mode. I mean, I don't think they're far off of this, which is probably why they saw the reaction to it and probably delayed it back to 2025 or to the end of 2025. You know, back in 2017 we had the starter menu. Maybe bring that back and incorporating it into something new, along with the ideas I've just laid out for you. Maybe could be getting close to something we would be a little bit more happier with. Again, I want to stipulate actually something. This is not me trying to defend Epic, this is me trying to defend integrity. Like this, each of the metaverse game modes need more work. They need to be flushed out more. That is obvious for anyone to see. Which I believe I'm being critical when I need to be, and giving them viable situations when I need to. Actually thinking about this case now, it's not actually Discovery that is the problem with what I'm saying here. I think it's the actual lobby. The whole framework of the lobby is the flaw here. It just doesn't work. It can never work. You try and put menus here, lists there and everywhere. I don't think what we're currently looking at actually works. And maybe that's why they're taking so long to redesign the UI, because they're not redesigning the UI. They could be redesigning the whole framework, because how I put it here to myself, this may not make sense to anyone watching the video, and if it doesn't, I'm so sorry. But to me, what I laid out here, the lobby doesn't work. It's a massive issue, not the UI, the lobby itself. The concept that has structured Fortnite for years doesn't work for this metaverse system. Like, this is something I did for a thumbnail, where I kind of touched on this subject, and obviously I'm going a bit more into detail. Maybe if you add the item shop to here, so it's completely separate as well. Again, I'm not saying that's the perfect solution, because that also has its issues. Or maybe each mode will have its own associated item shop. Go to Rocket Racing, you get your own stuff. Battle Royale. Battle Royale is a little bit more of an issue, because that does actually cross-relate to other things. The cars, of course, and what I've already mentioned. So there is, again, issues that will arise that you need to flush out somehow. Like, would you have to completely redesign the wheel for this to work? I'm trying to think back. Does anyone remember the game Hyperspace? I feel like you were kind of in a hub, and you could go to BR, and you could go to the shop from it. I mean, games have done this before. It's not the only case, but that's the only example I had in my head immediately then. So yes, the UI is the issue, but at the same time, it's a framework within that UI with how we go into the lobby and then we select our game modes like that. But I haven't really discussed the line where Donald Mustard says, this is actually the magic. Of course, the events are magical. The storyline is gripping when it's in high gear. And I believe it's more hub style, complete UI, lobby rework, and you're encapsulating the game modes rather than them being completely separate entities at the moment, which I feel like they are. Of course, LEGO tries to touch upon the lore occasionally with some of their interactions, but to have a hub in future where you can see LEGO characters, where you can see festival guitars in action, a real playground for these modes, and a real integration. I feel like Fortnite hasn't committed to the integration, which is probably why you get these certain groups who attack each other, because they're LEGO Fortnite and they enjoy it, and they're BR and they enjoy this. Now I feel like Donald Mustard, of course, didn't agree with how certain members of the Epic board were handling the metaverse, but I don't feel like that meant that Donald Mustard hates the metaverse or hates any of the other game modes. Now, because there's this drawing and there's no mention of a racing mode, some people say, well, he obviously didn't like the racing mode, which of course could be a case. I guess you can think that, but I don't necessarily believe that. Because they brought Psyonix in 2019. Like, if they had this piece of paper out on the table, like, we need to make this happen, what do we do? Well, we need to buy Rock Band publishers. Okay, but let's get Rocket League because I want a racing mode. Oh, that's cool. I feel like I'm slightly stretching reality there because I am sort of surmising this conversation ever took place. But for you to say that Donald just hates everything, doesn't like this, doesn't like that, is just ridiculous. And you're fundamentally using that argument when you're trying to break down as to why the metaverse is failing is kind of ludicrous in my opinion. At this point, I've heard it all year. People are going to say I'm glazing. I'm not. I'm just thinking you're being disingenuous by not mentioning this when you're doing your arguments against the metaverse or for the metaverse even. I feel like the metaverse should have been an easy transition for Fortnite given that overarching storyline, if you want to mention storyline, and it should have really worked well with their personalities. Like, Fortnite's personality is the metaverse, the Omniverse. It's just poorly executed. As I previously said, I think they need to go hard or go home. There might be an argument where people say they should just give up. Yes, and they're not going to go fully 100% and just really get it done. Or the argument that the metaverse games get less players than BR. Yeah, I'm not really getting the argument for that. I get it's a point, but were you expecting it to get more players than BR? Or even close to it? Remember guys, these are also concurrent players, not just overall players. LEGO holds 50,000 concurrent players. Rocket Racing, even though apparently it's dead, is holding 5,000, which is more than most AAA rated games. Look, the metaverse needs work. I'm not going to beat around the bush about that. But I do want to stop hearing the same arguments. Anyway, I hope you did enjoy this one. Please leave a comment down below and I will try and answer you if it's... I will try and answer you. Guys, if you did enjoy this video, you may enjoy this one because it's, I guess, similar in notion. But, guys, hit that subscribe button, leave a like on the video, and until next time, it has been your boy, Mr. JLY. Till next time, bye-bye.